Hello and welcome to another video. So with the changes to Elana Haven and of course to New Blood, we're going to have to try and cover them in different variations, different types, and of course get back into the swing of what could be the new meta. So of course the things that were changed was just Elana herself. Of course the Purest Prayer now being a 4-drop, which it's a little rough. I think it also did get its stats buffed, I think, did it there? Yeah, so it's a 3-4. I think it was a 2-2 before, which made sense. A 2-drop 2-2 was pretty standard follower, and I believe it was pretty easy to buff up. So this actually isn't bad as far as stats go, so that's okay. Being a 4-drop actually curves out nicely with your Evo, so you can actually curve up pretty well without much issue. You really just lose that turn 4 swing that you could potentially add. You can still do a pretty okay turn 5 swing with just a Tender Rabbit and an Elana, or just some healing in Elana. Will still get you a decent follower as well, so that's not actually too bad. Most of the deck has stayed the same overall. If you've seen my other variations on Elana Haven, the only real difference now is Unica is actually half decent. It does a really nice job. Even if you don't get its healing effect, it's just a really solid 2-drop, so definitely a nice one to have. And Realm of Repose, something I wasn't expecting, but does really well. It's a great way to stop things like mono, which of course Blood is starting to run more, focusing on the Mecha Blood style of decks. It does stop Sword pretty well as well, of course, limiting damage output, so that's always good as well. Also other Elana decks it can actually do quite well against. Otherwise, everything else I think is actually pretty much standard. The only real additions that I've got here are the Unica and the Realm of Repose compared to normal, but everything else is just supporting the kind of mecha style one where we're focusing on the Robo Falcons, the Robot, the Iron Knuckles, those sort of things. We have cut, of course, the Aegis Summoner, and we don't need any more Evos. You're better off holding an Evo in nearly any situation with Elana than trying to generate more a lot of the time, because it's just too slow, especially now that Elana's been changed to a 4-drop. If you're wasting a turn trying to get Evos out so you can then play Elana, it's just way too slow. You really just need that push to get Elana out early. If you don't have Elana out by turn like 8, you're going to struggle in the match no matter what. You can of course recover with things like Holy Marksman and stuff, but it's really hard to get that out and win the game. So we're going to get right into this and check it out. So first up, we're up against Blood, which is still a pretty half decent deck when you're running, of course, Mecha Blood. Those robots do a pretty good job, and I think that's actually our next video for tomorrow is going to be Mecha Blood. Basically, Vengeance Blood is reasonably dead. I mean, it's still possible to run a Vengeance Blood deck. It's just not very good overall. Vengeance Blood, I think, has definitely outtaken it now. Vengeance Blood was always a good deck. It was just being overshadowed again by, of course, Vengeance Blood. So now anyone who's a major Blood player is probably just switching over to that, which makes perfect sense. So I could have just banished this with Blackened Scripture, which honestly might have been the better way to do it. But I thought, why not wait till next turn to banish it with Blackened Scripture, or let them trade, since I do have another Robo Falcon and don't really need to worry about it too much. So I decided to blacken this turn just to limit their board options. Well, I did decide to trade as well. Basically just developing an okay board in case we manage to pull an Elana play for turn 5. Gear Snake Tamer, not half bad. Definitely going wide. Fortunately, no Elana play, so it definitely slows us down a little bit. And as I said, you usually want to try and limit your Evos as much as you can, but we are well ahead as far as damage goes, and Mecha Blood doesn't run much healing at all, if any, normally. Hoverboard Mercenary and a Technolord. That's actually a really good one for them to pull. That was pretty ideal, actually. So we got a free turn just to drop Gem Princess, 2 1/1s and no threat to us at 19 health. Well, 20 once of course you count the end of turn heal. Really just gotta wait till we can pull out Elana in some way, shape or form. This is where something like Zoe comes in real handy. If we could pull one of those, we can actually shuffle through a few cards using repairs, since we can generate more of those. And we do have to get rid of the 6-1. So we did manage to get the Zoe, but we do have to, of course, wait on this board. Probably a mistake for me to go in like this, but I decided to do this anyway. Since I know turn 7, they're most likely going for a mono play, and with 2 Machina followers already on board, I didn't want to have to worry about them just absolutely stomping us. So now I get my chance to go for the Zoe play, even though I'm not in the best position to do so. And there is the Elana finally, so repose it is, with just a straight up end of turn. We've now got an okay play. As I mentioned, it can be very hard to win the game from turn 8 with Elana, but if you can maintain 20 health and get repose down, you can actually survive pretty reasonably. It's really just a matter of being able to survive long enough. And we just happen to be in a good position against Blood here, where we weren't too low on health. We were able to take a few hits there and drag the game out a little bit. We get a pretty decent chance with this repair too, to just deal some damage and go face. So definitely not an easy board to deal with for our opponent. So this mono is going to really be quite dangerous. So they did have 8+6, they couldn't use an Evo, so they were only at 14 damage. They would have been 1 short. That's definitely got to feel bad. I don't think there was any way they could have made up that damage, since of course they couldn't Evo the follower, since they were already Evo'd from mono. And that is going to end the game. Just a buff board with a keel, not the easiest thing to get over. For the next match, we are up against Shadow. Shadow shouldn't be too big a threat, fortunately. If you watch my video from yesterday, Mid Shadow unfortunately doesn't have a great matchup against Haven in particular. Both the Elana healing keeps it out of range of things like Skull Lord typically, and since we are running a Machina set, it's really hard for it to be dealt with in the first place. If it's Hades though, they have at least a chance, although I don't expect to see many Hades players floating around, so. Alright, Lean Green Hammering Machine, we got our Goblin. They're going for the Fran Monster Girl. I haven't seen that played for a while, that was cut from a lot of decks, just for space. So Black Inscription, I mean, what other option do I have? We need to get rid of that before Evo turns start to get triggered in the future, so. Alright, no choice but to Robo Evo so I can remove the 1-3 there. Again, we can't leave up Lady Greys, we want to get rid of them as quickly as possible, if we can. Probably could have went for the Zoe, to be honest. Probably would have had some more value if I had have played Zoe, healed, got the draw, and then removed, especially since we don't have Elana in our hand yet. And now I've got to really make the decision on how to play this next turn. So I decided to go for the Zoe, looking for the Elana preferably. Still not finding it. Definitely have a rough time getting that out. If I could somehow mulligan it into my hand in the early game, it would be better. If I could tutor it out, that would be even better. And this is done okay, but it's definitely not the best hand. Fortunately for us, we still have an Evo, we still have the Holy Keel, and we've got some healing, so we should be able to abuse that pretty easily, which will wipe the board. Actually, I don't even think I need. No, I do need to use Tender because I haven't put down my 6 drop yet. So, if we want to just wipe this, we've got to do it pretty easily. Alright, Malice isn't a big threat like that unless they got 2 of them, which they do, of course. At least it wastes 4 points. That's a lot of things to waste there. Ah, finally, the Elana. So now we can go pretty easily in on this. I could have went for the Zoe. I decided to hold it just because I know my setup for next turn is going to generate some healing. So I can actually go for the Robot Wing, the Robo Falcon into the Zoe with some healing, get a decent board set up, and draw a card if that's the path I decide to take. There are some other options yet, so... And there's the Nicola again, just generating more and more of those. Definitely an interesting one. Doesn't look like mid-shadow, but still interesting nonetheless. So I decided to go all in on generating healing instead this time, since draw right this second wasn't that important, and getting a ward up felt more important to me. And obviously it worked out, because building a ward and building up a decent board obviously wasn't going to be dealt with. So I hope you guys did enjoy this video. I actually am starting to feel like maybe Elana is almost better than it was as far as being more consistent and straightforward. The only trouble, of course, is getting Elana into your hand. That's the one where it really does seem to struggle, as you saw in both of my matches there. And most of the matches I played, I can run into that issue. If I get Elana on my opener, I almost always hold it, because trying to get it out of the deck can be a nightmare. But you have got some decent ways to definitely swarm the board continually, sustain yourself for a long time, and even hold evos, since you don't, of course, even need to use them that often, as you saw with what I was doing. If you have 3 evos going second, it's even easier. You can usually waste 1, even 2, without much of a worry, and hold the third, but it can be trickier, of course. Saintly Core is not a bad way if you're looking to regenerate an Evo. The only problem is it takes up so many play points and takes up basically an entire turn. Olivia is okay if you're really going into the late game all the time, but has really slow synergy and needs to stick to the board if you want to take advantage of it with something like Elana now. So it's definitely a lot trickier to use it that way, and definitely a lot slower. Ideally, Elana needs to come out between turn 4 and turn 6, no later than 8 at the very top, if you want to have a chance of winning most games. That's really the only way that I can think of it, and the only way I can play the deck. If you go much later than that, it's too late for Elana to really come out, unless you're already dominating the board and ahead by a mile, and Elena's just that icing on the top at that point. So if you guys did enjoy this video, hit the like button and subscribe. You'll find the deck list in the description below. Until next time, guys, see ya.